Good evening and welcome to Galactic Terrors, the online reading series that scours the known universe for scary stories, strange tales, weird horror, and all sorts of literary oddities from the most imaginative authors writing in a variety of fascinating genres. Tonight, I am joined by co-host Carol Gyzander. Hello, Carol.
Hello.
We have an absolutely amazing lineup of readers joining us tonight in honor of a brand new anthology that will be coming out soon. Reading with us tonight are Lee Murray, KYLA Lee Ward, Anna TABORSKA, Cindy O'Quinn, and Carol Gyzander.
Mm-hmm. It's fun to do a sort of special dedicated episode on this. Frequently, we would have a guest host come on and do something if I were reading. But with 5 readers already, we thought, gee, we would get the screen a little full. So I'm going to go ahead and co-host with Jim. And this is going to be fun. I've been really looking forward to sharing some of these stories and talking a little bit about the anthology. So,
yeah, and it was budget cuts. We couldn't afford a co-host this month. So if you want to help us with that, click like and subscribe to secure the Galactic Terrors future co-host guest co-host fund. Okay, of course none of this actually exists, but hey, everyone else is suffering budget cuts. Why not us?
That's true. If it did exist, then I would be getting paid double tonight. So, but hey, what are you going to do?
Yes. That's true. And Galactic Terrors, for those of you who may be joining us for the first time, is a monthly online reading series broadcast every second Thursday of the month, with occasional schedule changes, but mostly every second Thursday of the month. You can find us on YouTube, you can find us on Facebook, and you can also sign up for our Galactic Terrors newsletter to help keep you up to date on what's coming up, who's reading, and when we're going to be broadcasting.
Mm-hmm. And I promise, the only thing I like about Spam, I make this joke all the time, but I had a Southern mother who would cook fried Spam sandwiches. That's the only thing I like about Spam. We do not send you too many newsletters, too many emails. So no need to worry about that. It's all strictly related and such. So, I see in the chat, Teal James Glenn just said, the scary ladies are coming. Spooky.
I'm not sure what I said, but something I said, Teal says, is easy for me to say. That's easy for you to say.
Cool. Okay, but the most important thing that we have to get, covered, because we do this all the time, there's only 49 days until Halloween.
Yes.
Right?
It's obligatory at this time of year that any horror event include that countdown number.
It's only fair. Cool. Well, what do you think? Let's have everybody come on the screen just to talk for a second and say hi, because we have so many great folks who are waiting in the wings here.
Absolutely. Yeah. Let's bring on this evening's readers.
Yeah.
All right. Welcome, everyone.
Look at this nice little house. Cool. I feel like we're doing the Brady Bunch with Jim in the middle. This is kind of fun. Yeah. So thank you, sisters, for joining us. This is fun to see you all together. We're all over the place, and we don't usually get to see each other all at the same time.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, really, thanks for having us. Not the same time, is it?
No, it's we're simultaneously, but not at the same time. But
it's not even the same day for all of us, if I'm not mistaken. So
yeah.
But this is a special event. This is one of those episodes of Galactic Terrors where we do something, we break the mold a little bit and do something special to acknowledge a really out of the ordinary project. So I don't know, Carol, if you want to talk a little bit about why we're all here tonight and what this new book is.
Yes, this is a fabulous anthology called Discontinue If Death Ensues, and many of us have copies. Cindy's is still in the way. We were sending you, really, we are. Yeah, I can't help but do this. This is a fabulous. It's got ribbons, purple ribbons as bookmarks, and it's got beautiful embossed edges on the thing. This is from Flame Tree Publishing, and it's simply gorgeous. But this anthology came about because the 5 of us who created this together we were all nominees for the Bram Stoker Award for Superior Achievement in Short Stories for 2021. And it was the very first time that all of the nominees in a category were women. I mean, we made HWA history. And we were already friends with each other, you know, back and forth. And as we were coming closer to the Bram Stoker Award banquet, we chatted more and more. And then afterwards we did as well. Lee Murray won the award and received it for a fabulous story. But the other thing that we all received was this great friendship. And Anna's going to tell us a little bit more about that later on with her reading. But the thing that we did, we realized that we all have an interesting approach to women and some of our horror. And it all tends to be very respectful of the place of women in the world. And so we got going on an idea, an anthology. We're from all around the world. So let's just say, Cindy, tell us where you are and what time it is where you're located right now.
It is just a little after 8 p.m. Eastern time, and I'm in White Sulphur Springs, West Virginia now.
Aha.
No longer in northern Maine.
Okay, a little bit warmer. Yes.
Yeah.
Cool. I'm glad you're settling in.
Yeah.
And Anna, where are you? And where are you writing from? And what time is it for you?
I'm in London, England, and it's just after 1 a.m.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Yes, KYLA, where are you located, and what day or time is it for you?
Today is Friday the 13th in Sydney, and it's a balmy 10 a.m.
Aha. There we go. And Lee, how about yourself?
Well, I think I'm the furthest in the future. It is Friday the 13th, and it is lunchtime in New Zealand, and I'm on Tauranga in the beautiful Bay of Plenty.
Excellent. And Jim, you and I are in New York, so it's just past 8 o'clock at night.
Yep.
But yeah, you can see what kind of fun we had trying to get everybody together for meetings. But Anna took the award here for being up the most unusual hour, I think. So thank you. What we thought was interesting for our anthology, we each wrote from our own location and our own territories. And what we decided to write about was an anthology of stories where the abuse of the environment and of women reaches a tipping point. Changes and things occur with a subtle shift in the power dynamic, but we can explain it a little bit better, I think, if we read our little blurb together. Sisters, what do you think? Should we do this?
Sure.
Okay.
Let's go for it.
Cool. KYLA, can you start us?
We are changing.
All over the world, strange children are born, and adults exhibit distortions of body and mind. Some people manifest powers as if a new age dawns, as if environmental catastrophe has triggered a frantic evolutionary scrabble, or the pressures of modern life a paradigmatic backlash.
No two outbreaks are alike. The changes determined by local conditions. The only pattern, the mutations and metamorphoses occur in women and girls.
Now they have noticed. Now they are coming.
Scientists and doctors scramble to contain and define the shift, while police and military act to stamp out unrest as society wallows in confusion and denial, in fear.
But humanity has reached its tipping point, and what has started will not be stopped. For as deep as its roots lie in the past, the future is being seized by claw and wing, poison and psyche, and concealed teeth.
They bring us a fight. They shall know our rage.
Thank you, sisters. I've been dying to do that for so long. That's what our anthology is all about. And each of us has written stories from our own home location that address this theme. What we'd love to do is share a few of the stories with you.
Before we jump into the stories, I'm going to share this comment from Teal because that's not Teal. There we go. Encapsulates what I was thinking listening to that. This is awesome and creepy all at once, and I'm really excited to see where you take us.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. Cool.
Yeah.
So
all right. So go ahead, Carol. We were going to jump into the readings, I think, right?
Yes. I get to be the first reader.
Yay. All right. So let me introduce Carol, and then we're a little out of our usual Galactic Terrors rhythm, so we'll do a little fancy footwork after I introduce you. How does that sound?
Sure.
Perfect. All right. Carol Gyzander is a Bram Stoker Award finalist who writes and edits horror, weird fiction, and science fiction, with stories appearing in Weird Tales, Weird House Magazine, and Under Twin Suns, Alternate Histories of the Yellow Sign. As an anthology editor, she contributed to A Woman Unbecoming and Even in the Grave, a ghost story anthology. Carol is co-chair of the HWA NY chapter and one of the HWA's chapter program managers. She is also, as we all know right now, a co-host of Galactic Terrors, and you can find Carol at carolgyzander.com. All right, everyone. Let's get ready for Carol's reading.
I'm going to read my poem, Bobblehead. You do your job well that day, only to be corrected by a man who is not even your boss. You smile and nod. You love art class after work, but the studio guy critiques your piece before it is even done. You smile and nod. You pull away from Uncle at the family party when he passes by too closely and laughs as he pats your backside. You smile and nod. You try to refuse Uncle's offer to escort you home after the gathering, but he insists it's for your own safety. You smile and nod. You gather your torn clothes after he's done, as Uncle says to consider yourself lucky that he even paid you any attention. You smile and nod. You become restless in your own body. A different energy courses through you, no longer your own, no longer alone. You wonder and nod. You talk to the doctor about your fears, show him the home test kit, since that extra line must be a mistake, right? You smile and nod. You should have used protection, he says. Of course, this happens all the time. Now it's your responsibility to bear. You smile and nod. You ask about alternatives, please, because surely you can't be expected to. No, he says. That's against the law. You pause and nod. You feel your body change as something else takes control and changes how you walk home. Passers-by move out of your way for the first time. You shrug and nod. You gaze in the bathroom mirror with wonder, pull back your lips and turn your head. The light glints off what it reveals. You grin and nod. You stare at Uncle when he laughs and asks, "Aren't you getting a bit fat?" You run your tongue along those multiple rows of teeth. You bite off his head and smile. Thank you. That's a little bit of a start for what we have in our anthology. All set.
Thank you, Carol. Very chilling.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you.
So that is one of your stories in the anthology, or an excerpt from one.
That's right. That we each of us wrote a poem and one or more stories, roughly the same amount of space, and we grouped all the contributions together from each author because they were, for a particular area and such. So that was my lead-off poem. Thanks. So
Amazing.
I have not read it to my dentist. I probably should not do that. No.
Certainly evocative, and I think telling. And Teresa Derwin had an interesting comment on it, unfortunately relatable, which I suspect is one of the themes that we might find in this anthology. Something like that.
Yes, we've been very very heartened and pleased that people are able to read our stories and see what we're trying to say. Pay attention is what we're trying to say.
So I've been wondering, how did you, or when did you figure out collectively that the final ballot in short fiction that year was a milestone, that it was the first time that all of the nominees were women?
I have to give credit to Lee Murray for that one. We were noticing among ourselves, it's like, oh, this is amazing. We're all women. This is very cool. And how often is it that people who represent as women have been all the nominees? And Lee started thinking about it and did a little deep dive and did a little research in the archives and discovered that yes, indeed, we were the first group. And then the very next year, it happened again, and I believe it was for one of the other categories. It was all women again, so that was very heartening. There's the Women in Horror Month had been going on for 10 years at that point, and the whole intent was to focus on women in horror and what they write and what they have to say, and I hope that we're doing the same thing. So that's cool.
Terrific. So you are also, in addition to a contributor, one of the editors of the anthology.
That's right. Anna Taborska and I are the co-editors of the anthology, and we all worked together very carefully, though, and spent a lot of time talking about what did we want our anthology to do. It was a joint effort to come up with the little bit that we read as a script at the beginning there, our description of the point and the focus and the purpose. And so it was all very much a mutual endeavor to come up with the stories. We all read each other's stories. We offered feedback to each other's stories. And then when we got into the actual editing stages, Anna and I, took it from there to the finish line. So.
And were there any particular challenges or hurdles that you had to overcome for this?
Well, you saw how we mentioned at the beginning how we were from different areas.
Right.
And what I discovered as I got into this more and more, Cindy and I are the only two from the same country. And so I was very familiar with American editing techniques and standards for punctuation and spelling and word usages, even though she and I live in different parts of the country and use some phrases differently. But then when I started looking at what to do for Anna's, which are, she writes, in England in typical British style, okay, there's lots of documentation on that. But then I started diving into, well, what do they do in New Zealand? And what kind of standards do they follow in Australia? So I did a kind of deep dive into all that and did a lot of research. And then we all got together for a meeting, and I talked about the fact that we should try and keep our own home country's punctuation and spelling, because that influences the words. But then Lee and KYLA were so kind. They said, well, where we live, we are very used to being changed slightly. So if you'd like to just use the British standards for ours, that's fine. But that was very helpful. So what I did do was pull together a style guide that showed how we would do our punctuation and stuff. And that I think that helped going through with the editing to see, exactly how we would do it. And I know a lot of the grammar and the commas and the spellings, are not very interesting to some people, but I'm a twitchy person. So those things kind of appeal to me very much so.
It seems like the kind of thing you wouldn't really, it wouldn't become apparent until you actually started working on the book.
Yes, I had not really thought about it. You're absolutely right. So I got to learn a lot.
And how did you, and we'll, maybe talk about this at the end too, so we can hear what everyone else's perspective is, but I'm just wondering how you came up with or arrived at the theme. It's not a simple or familiar theme like we're doing a different take on vampires or something. It's something really that reaches for, I think, a pretty what am I struggling to say here? My brain is
Yes, we've all had a week.
it's fucking neutral at the moment, but it's something that it reaches for something bigger, something more than just, you know, the thrill of horror. It's reaching toward what horror sometimes does best, which is cast a light on things that we too often sweep under the rug. Is kind of what I'm thinking. And was that intentional, or did it just kind of organically happen?
Yes, thank you. That is an excellent question. And, you know, we can all go to a horror movie and yell together, "Don't go near the chainsaws in the garage," you know, but horror has a very interesting and important role as well in terms of casting a certain light on our society and what we are doing as people. And horror pulls back the covers on the bed and shows the darkness in our lives. And we get a chance to look at it through the view of horror in a slightly more safe way. And it's a way to consider what's going on. That's what I think about horror. So we found that we all paid attention to the way women were treated and to the way that the environment has been treated. And it was very significant to all of us. And that's one of the things that got us to be even better friends as a group. It was very significant to all of us that we addressed some of these social issues, and we had all had different experience with the way people treated women. So we wanted to explore that together.
Fantastic. Well, wonderful. Well, Carol, I think unless there's anything you'd like to add, we'll move on to our next reader. And
yes, I can't wait to hear more stories.
Fantastic. All right. Well, we will see you again a little bit later. Thank you so much. All right. Our next reader is Lee Murray. Lee is a 5-time Bram Stoker Award and multiple Australian Shadows and Sir Julius Vogel Award winner. Lee is New Zealand's only recipient of the Shirley Jackson Award. She holds a New Zealand Prime Minister's Award for Literary Achievement in Fiction, and you can learn more about Lee Murray at www.leemurray.info. All right. Welcome, Lee.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining the Sisters of Foreboding here on Galactic Terrors. I'm going to be reading an excerpt from my story Goddess, which is a retelling of the story of Maui and the goddess of death, Hine Nui Te Po. And then if there's time, I might just read you my poem from the collection as well. So this is from Goddess. Hine picked up the remote and flicked on the television. She did this a lot lately. I would come out of my room on the way to the bathroom or just to check she was home and would find her dozing on the couch, the television flickering a neon blue dreamscape on the ceiling. These days, she wasn't getting much sleep. You'd think we'd be sleeping like the almost dead, wouldn't you, P? She joked the night Europe went dark. It wasn't just the global fallout. It was the night realm and her newfound power over life and death. That kind of responsibility changed a person. Plus, I knew she'd seen things, ugliness she wouldn't reveal, not even to me. Instead, she'd numb her sorrow by binge-watching some rerun or another. In the morning, she couldn't even tell me what it was. I longed to comfort her. If she craved human contact, I could spoon her. I was here, alive and warm and willing. But Hine didn't know, could never know how I felt about her. So I hovered in the gloom, feeling sorry for myself as she fell asleep in Maui's arms, then snored softly, her top lip trembling. I was about to creep back to bed when Maui rose from the couch. I hadn't realized he was still awake. He padded across to the kitchen where his shadowy form coalesced in the silver moonlight, getting himself a drink of water or something else. I cracked the door a little wider. He was fumbling in the darkness. A cell phone glowed, illuminating his face in ghostly white. Yeah, I'm here with her, he whispered. Nah, not happening, not tonight. Straining to hear, I crept down the hall and ducked behind the credenza. Dad, you don't understand. There's something different about her. She's not like other women. He leaned against the kitchen bench while the phone hummed with insistence. Okay, yeah, I'll get it done. He snapped it off and turned back to Hine, lifted his arm and rubbed the back of his head. All at once the room zinged with menace and the air turned cold. It was as if Pharaoh, the Lord of Darkness himself, had entered the room, snaking his evil tentacles through the slats in the air conditioning. The moon shuddered. I held my breath. In that moment, Maui changed before me, his thick man neck contorting into bulbous, brutal forms which shifted, shriveled, shrank. He dropped to his hands and knees, his skin darkening and his spine extended at his tailbone. He became a lizard, cloaked in reptilian red. Well, he would choose to take the form of a cursed harbinger of ill luck, wouldn't he? When the ugly son of Panga had shrunk to the size of a football, he turned his yellow eyes on Hine. His tongue darted in and out, and he scuttled towards the couch. I panicked, trembling behind the credenza like a coward as Maui climbed the couch, latching on to the fabric with his curved lizard claws. What was he doing? But I knew. He wanted to take her power from her, to claim her body and a place in the night realm sanctum. Already the foul creature was burrowing behind Hine's zipper, plunging headfirst into her jeans until only his tail coiled and thrashed outside. It wriggled and writhed until her pants slipped past her hips. Hine moaned softly in her sleep. The lizard lifted his head and flicked his tongue, then plunged again. No. Hine, I screamed. Hine. I threw on the lights. So do we have time? Maybe. All right, I'll read from Withering now. This is the first poem in the collection. Withering. When they refused to bend, we hung them from the trees, left them to wither. Unbecoming women, their mealy mouths too full of teeth. We let their corpses desiccate, let them bake and blacken, stark warning to the wanton. Do this and you will suffer. That was the messaging to all those hungry, grasping whores. Not so many now, of course. Well, they had it coming. Only we hadn't counted on the trees, their heads bent together like crones over their knitting. The trees who willow wept, tears trickling downward, root bound to decay. We forgot about the trees. It was the tipping point, the line in the sand. Yes, we've heard it all before. But the giants withered, mothers of our first breath who fed and nurtured us. In a stand with their sisters, their heartwood splintered in solidarity. Do this and you will suffer. We got the message, just too late. So now we grunt and grasp, hell's breezes searing in our throats to our unbecoming end.
Awesome, Lee. Oh, I just love hearing your words in your voice. So thank you for sharing. This is wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you for having me in this anthology. And I feel so privileged to be part of it, and such a provocative theme, and with just my sisters of foreboding who I just adore. So thank you.
Oh, no, thank you. And I think we've all grown together as part of this this whole effort. So that's really tremendous. So I am fascinated by several of the stories that you have in the anthology that take place in New Zealand, and I have never been to New Zealand. So could you tell us a little bit about how you were able to use some of the folklore or the history or some of the specific thoughts that, from your area in your stories?
Yeah, so thanks for that, Carol. That particular reading was from was a retelling of a specific myth, which really does entirely follow our theme. Specifically that theme of sort of rape of women and trying to gain power through women by putting them down. So it was it really resonated for me, and so that was a wonderful opportunity to tell a story that is much beloved here in New Zealand and quite horrific in its way. And then I have At Maritoto Pool, which really looks at the landscape and that whole, Mother Earth changing and evolving in a way that might be horrific and different, and the hubris of us as humans. And finally, a piece called Glow, which is very experimental, and I was so grateful that the girls were so open to the idea of this one, because it's an epistolary sort of future speculative thing of just what might happen if women had a different sort of power. So I sort of took it to different places, and it does have a sort of a New Zealand connection, that one as well, although it starts in the United States. So I hoped it sort of bridged that global gap a little bit, but we'll see.
Yeah, cool. Well, we have a couple of questions in the audience. And Nicholas Dyack asks, something you've brought up before on social media, that people feel obligated to you in your time, blurbs, edits, big asks, etc. What's your advice on how to set up boundaries and say no to folks?
I have no idea. I do not know the answer to this question, because if I did, I would do it, and I don't seem to know how to do it.
Oh, that's fun. That's fun. I know that everybody loves to ask for your help, and so I think one of the most important things, right, is to at least say please, right?
Yeah, oh, definitely. Say please. Yeah, that would just make me feel a little happier if people would say please and thank you. Those are just like the bare minimum, right? I think. Yeah. Yeah.
And I have to share something. Rachel Brune, who is the publisher of Girls Press, and you and I have both done the Woman I'm Becoming, and some of our other sisters as well. Rachel has a very large Post-it note in hot pink with the letter no written on it, and she keeps it on top of it, right on her screen. So I think, Nick, that's one way that people could go about doing that. I think that might be helpful. Yeah. We have another question from Teal James Glenn, who says, I have to ask, where did the title of the anthology come from? And that's a perfect question for you, Lee, because you kind of helped us get this going. Could you tell us a little bit about the title?
Yeah, well, we played with a lot of different ideas, didn't we? And it just happened that I was reading Marge Percy's poetry collection. I read a lot of poetry; those are my poetry books above me. And it just happened that I was reading this one and came across this line in one of Marge's poems, which just sort of kind of it really resonated for me as being a kind of tipping point. At what point are we going to make change, when we're dead? And so I just loved the line, and I threw it out there to the girls and also the poem, and everyone liked it and sort of went with it. So I reached out to Marge Percy's people to see if she would allow us the permission to use that, and she has given us that. So I agree. I just think it just embodies what we were trying to do so well.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I was particularly thrilled because I had not been familiar with her poetry, so I got to learn something new as well. Yeah. So thank you so much for setting that up and arranging it all. So, great.
Welcome.
Well, Lee, what we'd love to do is have you come back on at the end when we're all going to talk about what we have coming up as well beyond this anthology, which comes out at the end of the month, and pre-orders are available, and we may have already put that pre-order link in the chat. So yes. So what I'd love to do is move on to Cindy now. Thank you so much, Lee. So Cindy O'Quinn is a Bram Stoker award-winning writer, author of Quondam from The Nightmare Never Ends, Lydia from the Shirley Jackson award-winning anthology, The Twisted Book of Shadows, The Thing I Found Along a Dirt Patch Road, A Gathering on the Mountain, and One and Done. Her poetry has been nominated for the Elgin, Dwarf Star, and Riesling Awards. She is an Appalachian writer from the beautiful mountains of West Virginia, which are the ideal backdrop for writing scary stories and dark poetry. You can find Cindy on Facebook at Cindy O'Quinn Writer. Cindy?
Hello. Thanks for tuning in. I'll be reading a little bit of the thing I found along a dirt patch road. I saw something today, something disturbing that shouldn't have been there, but it was. The thing in which I saw lay along that dirt patch road that I traveled twice a day, 6 days a week, back and forth to work as a hospice nurse. Mondays being my only day off, a day in which I enjoyed spending freely as I saw fit. Sometimes that just meant running errands, but it generally always included a walk. And more times than not, it would be a walk to the old covered bridge. And my faithful old companion was an 8-year-old border collie mix named Boots. He always went with me everywhere. Um, but this day I'm having trouble recalling just what I was doing. Walking. I do believe I was just simply enjoying the day, walking to the covered bridge. Some days I would take a pole with me and drop a line in and try to catch a trout or two for that night's supper. But today I just wanted to go for a walk and enjoy the sunshine and visit the covered bridge. It uh, it's just a piece of history, and the bridge is lovely. After the renovations, before it was restored, people had made a ramshackle mess of it, spraying vulgar words everywhere. But it was fixed up, and it was looking good and holding up. All these things that I was putting together told me that this particular day had to be a Monday because that was my only day off. It's coming back to me a piece or two at a time. Funny how that works sometimes. You feel like you're in a mind fog. I saw this thing that shouldn't have been there from a good distance off, and it made me pick up my pace a bit. Curiosity was getting the better of me. I'm always finding peculiar things on this road. I've lived on it my entire life, side of a mountain, near a covered bridge. And the things that I would find over the decades were interesting. So much so that I had a box and assorted findings that I had been collecting for 40, 50 years. Plenty of dead things, which I didn't keep, of course, but coming up on a fresh kill was pretty interesting nonetheless. Once I found a young barn owl in near perfect condition because the scavengers hadn't got to it yet. And that was pretty odd. I mean, this is the mountains, you know. I don't live in town, hence the dirt patch road and all. So, Bottom Creek, West Virginia. It's a far cry from anywhere. I found enough marbles over the years to fill a quart mason jar. I actually found a mason jar as well. Found plenty of hats, mainly baseball caps, but I didn't keep them. I was afraid they'd have lice. Of course, I could have took them in and washed them, but I didn't. I had a good shade hat and felt like it'd be silly to collect any more. It kind of makes a person wonder, though, whenever you find just one baby shoe, like you hope the child just slung it out the window for the fun of it and nothing more sinister happened. Still kind of creepy. Nonetheless, I have several unmatched baby shoes in that box. Something else, even more creepy, were dolls, of which I've got quite a few now. I feel confident those were just tossed out the window by their child owners while throwing a tantrum, and they probably weren't missed until bedtime, and they no longer had their favorite cuddle to coax them into dreamland. It's always so quiet on my Monday walks, but now that I really think about it, I remember hearing a vehicle, a loud one. From the sound of the muffler, or the lack thereof, my guess would be the sound belonged to Joey Buck Holcomb's old beat up Ford. More primer than paint anywhere you look. People called him JB for short. I didn't call him much of anything, I just never cared for him. He was a redneck through and through, the type that would just soon spit on you as look at you. I didn't dare start trouble, so I would simply throw my hand up in a neighborly gesture, wave, and they would go on. But I was just about up to the thing on the road. I still couldn't make it out. Something new for my box, I thought, but the sun was shining in my face just enough to make me regret not wearing that shade hat. I couldn't make it out. It wasn't clear. That's when I heard the deep-throated rumble of the first raven circling above. I guess the thing won't be for the box after all, if the ravens are already circling. Standing over the thing, all I could feel was puzzled. A strange memory from childhood came up all of a sudden, like at least 2 or 3 times a year, sometimes more, depending on how bad the flu season was. Our family would attend funerals for our kin and our friends further up the mountain. Usually took a four-wheel drive vehicle to make it all the way up to the graveyard. It wasn't really much of a road at all, just a makeshift holler made by a dozer. But mud season, you had to walk in, and the casket was actually brought in by a skidder. I remembered how scared it would make me to go that far on top of the mountain. And it wasn't because we were burying the dead. And it wasn't because it was a graveyard. It wasn't scary. It was just the opposite. I found that mountaintop graveyard to be one of the prettiest spots in the county, maybe the whole state. What scared me was an old dilapidated two-story farmhouse. No, that's not it either. It was all the children that were there. They were there all around the house, pitiful children, hanging off the porch, sitting on the steps, looking out the windows, or worse yet, just standing in the overgrown yard, staring like they knew in advance we were coming. A parade of trucks driving by just for their amusement. It only made sense that we were the only traffic to ever pass, since the graveyard was the last destination on the mountain. They ranged in age from toddler up to near adult, and they all had the same blank stare. Maybe the blankness in their faces came from not knowing anything but that holler and nothing beyond it. They held a look of longing that they already knew would never be fulfilled. I could feel their eyes peering in on me as we passed by. There was one boy in particular, looked to be about my age, and the way he looked at me, it scared me. I never did tell my parents though, because I felt ashamed of myself to be afraid of other children. They never attended our funerals, for our family and friends, and that was fine by me. I figured they had a family graveyard out behind their house in the woods somewhere. When I was 18, my father died and was buried in that graveyard. The same feelings started coming up in the pit of my stomach as we started up the holler. And where that house was nothing but bramble now. No sign of it ever being there, or the children. I asked my mother, and she didn't recall the house ever being there, much less the children. She was all torn up on account of losing my dad, so I dropped the subject and never came around to it again before she left this world as well. And that's been nearly a decade ago. Everything in my head was all messed up as I stared down at this thing that didn't belong on this dirt patch road. The only noises were the faint ripple of water as the creek passed under the covered bridge, and the ravens. Two more had joined the first, and they croaked and called back and forth in what sounded like a call to the dead. I couldn't take their sinister conversation another moment, and I screamed at them to shut up and light somewhere. Felt guilty immediately afterwards, because I loved ravens. Hell, I love all animals. But they understood. They understood the current torment that I was in, because all three landed atop a nearby fence and watched me in silence and waited to see what I would do next. I don't know how long I did this, but it was as though they were willing me to act, to see. It wasn't a thing along the dirt patch road. It was a man, and he was as dead could be. But I couldn't shake the feeling that he was staring at me with his open, dead eyes, lifeless eyes that seemed to come back to life with the passing of each cloud by the sun that reflected in his eyes. It was the boy from the old house near the graveyard. That same blank stare that I remembered from childhood was still there, worn now as a death mask. And at the same time, it was JB, someone I had known only in passing as an adult. I never looked into his face, Not the way I had looked into that little boy's face, who was about my age back then. He was one of those children, but now he was all grown up and dead.
Cindy, thank you so much. That was a beautiful reading and such a haunting story.
Scary part is a lot of it's true.
It had that feel. It had, I could imagine that you have walked along that road and found those
Yeah.
odd things here and
Mhm.
there. And
Yep.
I just was really mesmerized by that experience, just thinking about, how many times have you walked along a road and seen
Mhm.
hats or other things and wondered just exactly how somebody lost that
Right.
item. And the baby
Exactly.
shoes, yes, those are the most
Yeah. You just hope it's
unnerving.
nothing sinister, just wanting to throw it out the window for shits and giggles or something. Oh, me.
Oh my gosh. Well, let's see. I think we do have some questions coming in the chat. We did. I know I saw one. Oh yeah, this is all right. So this is from Nicholas Dyack, and apparently, as he says here, he asks this of all Appalachian folks: how do you eat your ramps?
Smashed on a ribeye on a grill.
All right. I don't
That's
know
the
what
best
any of
way
that
to eat 'em.
means, but
Oh,
what
me.
what are ramps for those of us not in the
That's
know?
kinda like a wild onion, but it's
Ah,
a lot stronger, and I think I bring up that in one of my other stories. I think it was a gathering on the mountain, and the building they were in, that was real hot, and everybody was waving their fans, and the odor in the air was like, and I remember this as a teenager, going to school during ramp season, and all the
oh,
boys, I mean, it would just they would sweat it out of their pores, this horrendous oniony odor, and I thought I would never eat them, but finally I did as an adult, love them. So, that was
terrific.
like
All
when we
right.
lived in Northern Maine. I had never had fiddleheads, had never heard of them, but I had to try them too, so gotta try out the new things where you're at.
Absolutely. Check out the local,
Yeah.
uh, I don't know if we'll say delicacies. Would they count as delicacies or just
I
the
do
local,
believe nope, I believe they're delicacies because it's
okay.
such a short season, so you're limited on how many you can get and all that, and it goes by pretty fast.
Fantastic. All right. Well, now I know what ramps are, so that's
Yeah,
good. Now, is that story you were reading from in Discontinue?
it is.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So, if people want to revisit that and hear, I guess now you didn't read the whole thing. It continued.
No,
Yeah.
no,
So there's still
just the
plenty
tip
to
of it,
read.
just the tip of it.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Um, and it sounds like this certainly was influenced by where you live or where you grew up.
Yeah, so I really didn't have to change the way I write,
Mhm.
I just take pieces of my experience growing up here, whether it's West Virginia or the time I spent in Northern Maine, um, life experiences. I just take them and add a little horror to it. But a lot of truth is in all of my stories. That's the only way I know how to write.
Those are the best stories,
Oh, thank
fiction
you.
fiction with the kernel or even more than a kernel of truth in it, I think is
Yeah,
always the most compelling. And is that a theme through your stories, the sort of the Appalachian setting or
yeah,
okay.
it is. There's one novel that I'm working on that takes place in Virginia and Maine, but all
Mm,
places that I've been. I generally don't write about any other place, unless I've been there and studied it a bit.
mm.
So it's mainly around West Virginia.
Okay. How, how did you, how did you find Maine? I mean, that's another very empty place. And
Yeah,
I've been to Maine, never lived there, but you can travel great
right.
distances in Maine and not see anybody or
And that's the area of Maine where we lived. We lived in
okay.
northern Maine, 2 miles away from an old border crossing. And it's not like the southern Maine, the beautiful coast and all that. It's
Mm,
beautiful in northern Maine in Aroostook County, which is about the size of Vermont, that county alone. But when my husband retired, he decided that, he had grown up in Virginia and me, West Virginia. Um, he wanted to retire somewhere completely new.
mm.
So him and me and the two boys narrowed it down to Maine. And that's how we ended there homesteading, actually, going all of our own food and meat and everything like that. It was an old Mennonite homestead. And whenever we drove through the gate, we were like, okay, this is it. It feels like we're stepping back in time about 200 years. So we stayed there for 8 years and realized it was time to come home to my mountains. Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, did you have any concessions to modern technology, electricity or internet, or was that all?
Well, there was a lot that we tried to keep as simple as possible those first couple years. I had to learn the art of wood stove cooking, you
Oh my
know.
gosh.
Yeah, and we had also had a fireplace, which, you could cook stew and stuff like that. And we had a wood cook stove, so it was just wood heat strictly,
Mm.
for the majority of the time. And we would can like 300 jars, 300 quarts of veggies and jams and stuff like that. And like I say, we processed our own meat and everything. In the beginning, we left it as simple as possible. We did get running hot water to the kitchen sink, which wasn't there. So we were a bit spoiled. We had electricity, but like I say, we just heated with wood. So it was a lot of work,
Yeah.
filling up the woodshed every summer and doing those sort of things. And, we went a while, we went like a year without having cable. And then we added that, we went, oh, almost 2 years without a dryer because we had an outside clothesline plus one on the inside. It was a log cabin with a loft and had the clothesline right above the to the boys, bedrooms up in the
Oh,
loft. So anyway, we eventually added a little more technology until we were back right where we started.
okay.
But it was nice for a while. Just too
It
much
really,
dough. Mhm.
I'm sure it changed your perspective. You really have to think ahead in a
Yeah.
lot of ways about
It,
stuff that, there's no running to the grocery store
right. If
when you
you had to
forgot
go to the
something.
grocery store, it was like a 3 or 4 hour event,
Wow, that's amazing.
So, and we probably grew 90% of our own food and everything. So it wasn't like we had to leave a whole lot.
Now,
It took,
has that experience made an appearance in any of your stories?
yes, it has. And then there's still one yet to come that Thomas Tessier has encouraged me to write because he liked the history of the Tessier homestead, that no relation to him, but we became pen pals because of that homestead, and it was the Tessier homestead. So he always tells me, Cindy, you were sitting in the middle of a Gothic New England horror story. You have to write at least one based on the homestead.
Yeah.
So that's yet to come.
Well, I think we're all looking forward to it.
Well, thank you so much.
So terrific. Well, Cindy, thanks again for such a beautiful reading. And we're going to have you back on with everyone else in a little bit,
Okay.
and we'll
Thanks so
talk some more.
much.
All
Thank
right. Okay. Our next reader is KYLA Lee Ward. KYLA is a Sydney-based creative whose work has garnered Australian Shadows and Aurealis Awards. She has been nominated for multiple Rieslings, Stoker, and Ditmar nominations, and you can find out more about KYLA at kylaward.com. All right, let's welcome KYLA.
Hello. All right. Well, my story from Discontinue If Death Ensues is titled Maleficium. I believe Leave mentioned that we all had roughly equal word counts with which we could do as we please, so I went and binged all mine at once. On this strange tale of a near future Sydney, in which a woman working at the coroner's office has begun looking a little deeper into some of the guests that come across her table and has found some disturbing things. Ahead of her, a wall loomed out of the murk, The path headed for a doorway, a grey rectangle in a broken black line. She stepped from the path onto slick, algae-encrusted brick, but her relief at regaining solid ground was erased by what she saw through that doorway. Dark veils of rain dragged across a nightmare. Crumbling towers that were once stairwells, expanses of roof now twisted and gaping, jagged metal, the blade itself bleeding slowly into the muck, but still tracing the outline of some gigantic building. It was the view from her landing, but here, underneath, it comprised a hopeless maze. What were those steel cabins? Their doors rusted shut, still stacked 3 or 4 high and who knew how many deep. What gigantic structure, memorialized by shards clawing out of the water, had crashed down, clearing a path for more water to enter, seething and striking towards the defiant land? She turned around. "I'll make my own way," she said. "I'll go that way." She pointed west along the wall to where the embankment barely loomed. "Oh, you'll step in a hole and drown," said Nemi, propelling Scylla through the door before her. "Worse, you'll make noise. Come on, this is the way." She wanted to ignore Nemi, turn her back on the mystery and the doctor and those wretched, wretched women and splash towards home. She did not. She followed Nemi and Scylla, and silently they worked their way towards the ocean. The black algae coated every surface. Xanthi had read that the mutant varieties outstripped all efforts to catalogue them, and not just of plants. In the polluted zones of other countries, there were reports of vast changes amongst invertebrate populations, many unsubstantiated, but all the same. If she only had time and tools. A sharp cry. Xanthi snapped out of her reverie. Ahead of her, one or other of the women had slipped, and Scylla hung in Nemi's arms. Without hesitating, she stomped forward. "Let me support her on the other side. Come on, she's in pain." "What do you know about pain?" "I'm a doctor, and she shouldn't even be out of bed, should she? Let alone being dragged through this muck. What if she's bleeding? At least take a look." Nemi's glare could have holed the bulwark. Then she pointed to one of the cabins, one side peeled partly away, still smeared with the remnants of blue paint. "We'll stop there, but only for a moment." Xanthi ducked underneath the jagged edge to see Nemi unfastening Scylla's slicker. "Wait," she said, and hastily shucked her borrowed skin. She laid it on the sucking black ground that grasped at her sabots with each step. Nemi said nothing, but allowed the girl to sit. Scylla could only have been 14, 15 at most. Skinny she was, her skin a pale gold with wisps of black hair escaping her hood. She would have been beautiful, save for the bruises and swelling across the right side of her face and the terror in those huge brown eyes. It went to the marrow, the fear of someone whose own body had become unfamiliar in its capacity for pain. She stared at Xanthi, who felt a terror all her own. "I'm Xanthi," she said softly. "I'm just going to stand over here while your friend looks after you, okay?" She turned her back, gazed out straight over the wall, which was steadily losing both height and integrity. The rain was so heavy that she couldn't see Botany, which she supposed was good. As the sounds behind her settled, she turned her head until she could just make out the dressings on Scylla's arms and torso as Nemi lifted a threadbare t-shirt, pale patches resolving into a pattern that told her what was wrong. She had seen those marks on 100 women who had not survived their rape. She turned back to the rain, feeling sicker than any toxin could possibly make her. After what seemed an age, Nemi squelched up and pushed past. What happened to her? Nemi ignored her, scanning the terrain. Just tell me, was it his people? People? Nemi snorted. Monsters. Why did they come after her? Nemi rounded on her. Because she's pretty. Used to be, if you were strong without any obvious growths, you let art check you out and got a job outside. But all the pretty ones end up at the club. So girls stopped going to art. That's when the inspections started. Now, sometimes they'll just take girls off the street. They didn't even know what they'd caught. Now, if anything happens, oh. The last was directed out at the rain. At the shadow in the rain, a black slicker using the remnant wall for cover as it closed, not from the west, but from the east, from the ocean, where no one would be unless they had been placed there deliberately to cut off escape. Maybe there was even a boat, a whole launch of black slickers stalking through the ruins. She thought of Kingston's bodyguard, who had threatened her with consequences. Nemi's arm was like iron, pushing her back inside the cabin. In the dimness, Nemi flashed a hand sign to the girl, who immediately rolled herself up in her slicker. Xanthi pulled her own up over her head. Now she was trapped in absorbing particles of heavy metals, insecticides, detergents, petrochemicals. Despite her slicker, despite her filter, through her lungs and through her skin. She didn't extend a hand, merely sat slicker to slicker with Scylla, and after a while, she felt the little ball press against her. Kingston had to know what his son had been involved in. Perhaps the bodyguard had found the same trail she had, or had followed her, tracked her here, and now they'd come to root out the murderer. Perhaps he thought it was Dr. Pandy, that she was breeding blue-ringed octopi in her clinic. And what did she think? I think I'm going to die. Thank you.
Oh my goodness. I think we were all sitting here listening to you and picturing this happen in front of our eyes. Thank you for bringing that to life so much, KYLA. It's just really amazing. Ah, my goodness. Thank you. That sort of makes me think of a question that I've been wanting to ask you for a while. You do some other things besides just writing that are involved in the creative world, yes? Can you tell us a little bit about that? There's some acting and, yeah.
Author, actor, artist is what I say.
Okay.
Yes, I have theatre training, and I've been doing quite a lot of acting, especially over the past 10 years.
Mm-hmm. Excellent, excellent. And I did see a little bit of you flash by just as an extra in the movie Furioso, which was so much fun for me to go. I went back to see it the second time just to see you.
You can see me if you're looking in the right. Oh.
It was so exciting. It was so exciting. Yes. But I am curious, and I'm always intrigued by people who do multiple creative things. Does your performance work affect the way you write, or does the way you write affect the way you do some of your performances?
Indisputably. I mean, the poem I contribute to Discontinue with Death Ensues is a monologue. Mm-hmm. I write a lot of monologues. And there's always dialogue. My work is noticeably dialogue heavy, and it has to be crossover.
Yes. Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. So we had some tremendous comments in the chat as well. Here's a great one. Teal said, "Wonderfully horrible, intense language, and a beautiful reading," and that speaks to what you were just saying. It's great background and experience, and you brought it to life for us. And someone else also asked a AAA of the artist acting, and yes, that's tremendous. What your piece was so wrenching to me when I read it, because it brought us into this future world, slightly future, far future, I'm not sure. And it's been a problem with the way people have treated both the environment and women in the world. So how did you come upon this perfect storm of these together? What made you think of this story?
Oh, goodness. Well, it was during one of our early brainstorming sessions, where we were all just chatting on Zoom and bouncing ideas. What was it Lee said? Playing with ideas.
Yes,
And
that was so much fun.
And for me, that's been probably the best thing about this whole project. Is just playing with ideas with all of you.
Yes.
And so we were just talking, and we had the idea of the tipping point and global degradation, and I just started getting these images. And I have long been sort of toying with this idea. You get ideas and you're just not sure where they'll fit or how they'll eventually come out. And this was an idea based in Australia's innately hostile nature that to all invaders especially, that manifests in extremes of weather, in incredible aridity and poison, toxins.
Yes.
So many things in Australia are toxic, either poisonous or venomous. It's been estimated we have like 88 significantly venomous species here, including like 1 of 2 venomous mammals in the world.
That's right. That's right. And in the US, we commonly say
trees that can kill you.
Trees.
Literally.
Okay.
Literally.
Wow. The common saying in the US is that everything in Australia is trying to kill you. Is that really it? That's not too far from the fact, I guess. Yeah.
Once we had a guest over from the UK, not Anna, though we'd love to. And we offered to take him bushwalking, and he declined, saying quite correctly that in the UK, if you walk 50 meters into a forest, well, you'll have a lovely stroll along the green sward, see some wildflowers, and probably come across a ruin. In Australia, if you walk 50 meters in from the edge of the bush, you've got sunstroke, been bitten by a red-bellied black snake, and fallen off a cliff.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Well, thank you for making that sound so appealing. The travel agency will be speaking with you soon. No, that's cool. But that's the advantage of knowing someone there and such. Okay, we have another question from Teal, who just wants to know, I have to ask, is that Devon accent?
All right. I said I had theatrical training, so I am one of the rare eccentrics who actually speaks day to day with a mid-Atlantic accent. It's an accent that doesn't exist. It's completely artificial. What it is simply less broad than an American accent, less rounded and plummy than a proper British accent, and it's definitely not Australian either. What it is, it's a compromise of all three, and it's used a lot in audiobooks and voiceovers, because it is very clear.
And understandable to virtually everyone then. Yes, I see. My mother was a speech therapist who grew up in Alabama, which is a very southern accented part of the United States. And her first job was up in Vermont, which is in the northern part of the country, where they do not have a Southern accent at all. And she had to immediately teach herself, a generic, approach to the language. So she didn't teach all the Vermont kids to say, "How y'all doing?" So yeah. But within 30 seconds of speaking to a Southerner, she would revert instantly. So cool. Cool. Well, thank you so much, KYLA. I love your story so much, and it makes me cry and it makes me cheer at the same time every time I read it. And I love hearing it in your words. So thank you for sharing as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll ask you to come back on at the end in just a few minutes after Anna's bit, and we'll talk about what we have coming up. Thanks so much, KYLA. Yeah. So what I'd like to do is introduce Anna TABORSKA. Now, we mentioned at the beginning that it's almost the middle of the night for poor Anna. So she had recorded a piece previously for us, because just in case she wasn't able to get here or wasn't able to stay awake. So we have a recording of Anna. So let me do her introduction, and we'll do our video and then the recording of Anna, and we'll all come back together when that's done, including Anna, who's live, but who won't have to speak words so late at night. Anna TABORSKA writes horror stories and screenplays, with tales appearing in over 40 anthologies. She's been nominated for a British Fantasy Award 3 times and for a Bram Stoker Award 5 times. Anna has also directed 5 films. You can find more about her at annataborska.wixsite.com/horror or at Horror UK on Twitter. Anna?
Hi, thank you for having me on Galactic Terrors. I'm going to read a couple of extracts from my story, Mummy Mia. It jumps around in time quite a lot. It starts in ancient Egypt, but the first extract I'm going to read is from 1975. August 1975 AD. Dr. Pilkington, Pilky to his friends, and Dr. Pilferington to cynical acquaintances, was the quintessential product of his class and generation, or so it seemed. Nobody really knew which bastion of scholarship had bestowed his doctorate, as neither Oxford nor Cambridge claimed him. Perhaps he had studied at one of the northern colleges, and it was rumoured that he had an association with the university in Arkham, Massachusetts, but there is no record of his presence at that prestigious American institution either. Pilky's family history was equally obscure, and a matter on which he said little. When questioned, he merely smiled enigmatically, uttered something like, "Well, you know, old bean, it's all rather boring," and skillfully changed the subject to recount some escapade or other so scintillating that the questioner forgot what information it was that he or she had been trying to glean in the first place. What was known for certain was that Pilky had adventured from the Congo to Kamchatka and from Greenland to Tasmania, never returning empty-handed, and made a decent living begging, borrowing, buying, but mostly stealing valuable artifacts from distant lands and selling them via his nefarious contacts to a variety of private and institutional buyers. Rumour has it that the headhunters of Borneo let him keep his head, and threw in a few extra ones, in exchange for a mummified Siamese twin fetus from Zanzibar. Some say that Aleister Crowley once purchased a ritual chalice from Pilky, and that paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren were tasked for years to come with clearing up the odd spiritual mess left behind after overambitious practitioners of magic inadvertently released some Eritrean or Kandarian demon from an artifact that could be traced back to Pilkington's pilfering. It came as no surprise, then, when in the summer of 1975 Pilky was found dead in his antiquity-filled West London abode, with a look of abject terror on his face and a perfectly preserved mummy in his attic. The mummy turns out to be the body of a young priestess called Mia, who had her tongue cut out and was sealed alive in a tomb over 2,500 years earlier. But we're jumping to the present day for the second extract, in which scientists are trying to recreate Mia's voice by animating her extremely well-preserved vocal cords. Dr. Hendon continued to hold Mia's mouth open, while Bob gently pushed a thick, large, plastic-encased, blunt-tipped needle past the shriveled stump of her mutilated tongue and towards her vocal folds. The proboscis-like instrument was attached to a device that combined a small portable respirator with an electric impulse generator and would produce the stimulation needed to activate Mia's vocal cords. "Ready?" asked Bob. Mutterings of agreement reassured him that they were. Holding the tip of the probe against Mia's vocal cords, Bob cast a final quick look at the settings on the attached device, then pressed the power button. For a moment, there was silence, or so it seemed. Everyone waited with bated breath, and just as Bob was about to make a second attempt, they heard it. A sound the likes of which none of them had ever heard before. It started so softly that it was no sound at all, and then it swelled. Low-pitched, eldritch, unnerving, like a death rattle, like a gust of diseased air blowing through papyrus reeds, like the dry desert wind that brings locusts and madness. It grew in volume and in pitch, becoming a woman's cry of pain and terror, and then a blood-curdling animal roar of boundless rage. The overhead neon lights flickered. The film crew's light went out. The camera battery failed, and objects in the lab started to vibrate as though their fundamental frequency had been triggered. Then the electronic device that was animating the mummy's vocal cords fell to the floor, taking the probe that had been inserted into Mia's mouth with it, and the room was plunged into silence once more. As the stunned team recovered from their experiment, eyes glued to the desiccated remains before them, they failed to notice the vast, two-legged, lioness-headed shadow that rose from the darkness at the far end of the lab, moved behind a row of tables, then disappeared. So Carol and Jim asked me to talk briefly about a couple of things. The first is about the inspiration for our group name, the Sisters of Foreboding. The inspiration for that basically came from a very good, a nice article written in April of 2022 by fellow author Ken Broski for his regular Cemetery Dance online feature Dark Pathways. It was a piece on the use of foreshadowing as a storytelling technique, and in it Ken used as examples our 5 2021 Stoker-nominated short stories. Ken titled his piece A Frightening Sense of Foreboding, and that's when we thought it would be fun to refer to ourselves as the Sisters of Foreboding. So the other thing I wanted to mention briefly was how we all came to work with Flame Tree, which is a London-based publisher. They're also very active in America. So I'll say something briefly about that. Basically, Lee and I had already worked with Flame Tree in the past. I had a couple of short stories published in their Gothic and fantasy collection of hardback anthologies. We were all very impressed with the quality of the books that Flame Tree produced. Also, their senior editor, Gillian Whitaker, is a pleasure to work with. She edited my short stories a little bit for the anthology. And I met with Nick Wells, the founder of Flame Tree, because we're both UK based, we're both London based. And it was actually Nick's idea to publish Discontinue If Death Ensues as part of their new Beyond and Within series of hardbacks, which they describe as bringing together tales of mystery and imagination from modern and contemporary writers. Nick was also kind enough to agree to our suggestion of having original artwork and a cover insert by Lynn Hansen, an artist whose work we all value highly. I think that's all I wanted to say, really.
Excellent, and I loved hearing Anna's words. Let's bring everybody on and we can talk a little bit. Oh, Anna, yay. Thank you so much. Lee, delighted to see you. KYLA, Cindy, where's Jim? We need Jim. Yay, yay.
I'm here.
Yeah, so someone may still be muted, so take a peek at that. But I have two things that I'm really dying to show. We were the Sisters of Foreboding, as Anna explained, and I've been waiting to show this, but pardon me for flashing everyone. But this shirt is something that Cindy put together, the Sisters of Foreboding. She took our 5 pictures and put together a shirt. And I happened to be wearing this the day that they actually delivered our first copy of it to us. So I thought that was a slight bit of foreboding on my part, or that was foreshadowing, not foreboding. Yeah.
So what are the chances this is going to lead to some kind of new musical group, the Sisters of Foreboding? And I feel like you've got all of the elements of being rock stars, but the songs so far.
I think so. I think
can sing better than me.
I think I will have to have KYLA lead us off for that. I think that would be really tremendous. But one other thing that I would like to show is the other thing that that Anna had mentioned. This is the cover, Discontinue If Death Ensues, and the color artwork there is by Lynn Hansen, and it's in a black and white version on the inside of the book. It is simply gorgeous, and you can see the woman standing on the earth, and she's holding the scales of justice. Have we reached the tipping point? Yes. And of course, her face is also the inset on the cover there. So we were very thrilled to have Lynn do the artwork with us as well, because she has a very similar approach to many of the thoughts that we expressed about the strength of women and such. So that was very cool. But what do you think? We have just a few minutes left. Why don't we talk about what we have coming up? Who wants to go first, Lee?
Oh, Lee, who wants to go first? Lee. Oh, thank you. I'm super excited to be part of this beautiful anthology. So thank you for including me. What I have next coming up, today in New Zealand, today in America, the film Grafted, my feature film Grafted, is releasing nationwide in New Zealand, and I've heard that it's coming out in America at the Hawaii Film Festival. So that's the next, it's rolling out. So other things I have coming out is a poem in Jim's new anthology that's coming out put the cover up Carol, put the
Sure,
camera
sure.
up. There you go.
Carol
It's
beat me
coming
to
out
it.
in Where the Silent Ones Watch. So I'm very excited about that. And I have some short fiction coming out. I have a short piece coming out in folk horror, which is just released, also from Flame Tree in this beautiful, beautiful collection. And I'm working on This Way Lies Madness, which is another book in this Beyond and Within series with Dave Jeffrey, which is looking at mental health and horror, which I'm super proud of because it's such an important topic, particularly post-pandemic when we've all been struggling with, the way the world is and the trauma that's been going down over the last few years. So I'm very excited about that.
Yes. Awesome. Oh, thank you for sharing. KYLA, what's coming up for you?
My new short story, The Battlements of Twilight, is also coming out in James' new anthology. So thanks for that. I'm really looking forward to reading everyone else's. And after that, I'll be pretty much up to date, and we'll have to write some more.
Wow.
We're going to hold you to that. Yeah. Cindy, what's coming up for you? I know you've just moved and you're settling into a new house and all that. Have you had any time to do any writing recently, or?
A little bit. The next thing I have coming out after this, of course, is Bestiary of Blood, edited by Jamal Hodge through Crystal Lake Entertainment. I have a story in that I wrote myself, and then one that I co-wrote with Wayne Fenlon, Scotland, and that was a lot of fun.
Ooh, fun.
And then I have another big announcement. I have partnered with two incredibly talented women, Bella Gentile and Kathy Moriarty. The screenplay based on my novel, Dark Cloud on Naked Creek, is nearing completion, and the three of us will be working together to get that adapted into a film, hopefully starring the Oscar-nominated Kathy Moriarty.
Yeah. That's so exciting. That's so exciting.
Wow.
Congratulations. Neat. Well, speaking of people who work in film, Anna, what's coming up for you?
Well, I'm writing a couple of screenplays. One of them's horror, serial killer horror, which I'm co-writing. I'm also co-producing something called Naked Alien Massacre, which is based out of Las Vegas, which will be interesting. We'll see what happens with that. And I'm helping with a documentary which is based out of LA. So I'm doing these strange things largely remotely. And I've got a few short stories coming out as well. And I guess the thing I'm doing most is working with Rain Dance, which is a film festival and also a film school. And I'm contributing to their blog and programming their horror strand for their festival, which is called Scream Dance.
Oh my goodness! So it's not a surprise that you're up in the middle of the night. You were so much more awake now than I thought you might be at this hour. You could have done it really hands down. Yes.
The caffeine.
Caffeine is wonderful. Yeah. Jim, what's coming up for you?
Where the Silent Ones Watch, a new anthology of stories inspired by or set in the literary worlds of William Hope Hodgson, which I'm very excited about and grateful to have KYLA and Lee as contributors for that book. And it'll be coming out October 6th, and I'm really just eager for it to hit readers' hands and hopefully they'll like it.
Yes, I think so. There's been growing buzz about it. I think it's pretty exciting. Yeah. So.
And how about you, Carol? I know you've got some other projects in the works.
I have a few things. You know how you go a long time, nothing happens, and it all happens at once. Well, that explains my gray hair. But no, I'm very excited. Ruth and Ann's Guide to Time Travel has just come out, and I have a short story in here. And it's a gorgeous book, and it's been getting some lovely reviews. It's quite exciting. I have a short story. I was invited into Grimm Retold, and that's a bunch of stories about Grimm's fairy tales. And I can't wait to. I think I might get to see an actual copy of it this weekend. I'm down here in a hotel room. I didn't even mention this. I'm at Creatures, Crimes, and Creativity convention, along with quite a few of these publishers here. And I have another project that I'm working on that is sort of keeping me up at night, and this is called Dark Spores, Stories We Tell After Midnight, Volume 4. That's coming from Chrome Girls Press, and I'm co-editing that with Rachel Brune, and I'm very excited that we have a lovely poem from Lee Murray, and we've got a really cool story from Jim Chambers and a bunch of other friends and folks we've invited, and so we're looking for that to come out. It's probably around just maybe a little before Halloween, sometime next month. But there's some other activities that are coming up as well. We have our next Galactic Terrors reading is on October 10th at 8 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. And I'll say that because many people are from all around the world, as we've said. But we have HWA New York reader Deborah Every, and we have a guest, Valerie B. Williams, and we have a special presentation from Lou Rara, who makes all of our graphics and cool videos. And he's going to show us a little bit about how he does that and talk about it a little bit. And Jim, I think that's going to be cool, don't you think?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I always enjoy kind of a peek behind the scenes, and see what the technical wizardry is.
Yeah. And I think we might do a special episode next month, about an additional episode, perhaps. What do you think?
I'm hoping we will. That's definitely in the offing, and I would recommend, if you're watching tonight,
perhaps we can feature this one. I'm just saying,
if you'd like to keep updated on that, go ahead and sign up for the Galactic Terrors newsletter. So we'll send you reminders of upcoming broadcasts, and you'll be the first to know that we have a special extra.
We'll announce the date that way. Yes, indeed. There's a few things coming up in the New York area New York City area, for those who live near the northern part of New York City or can get there. Stanza Books is a new bookstore in Beacon, New York, which is really, really supportive of the horror community. And there's like 3 events with our people from the HWA New York chapter coming up there. On Thursday, September 21st, Megan Arcuri chats with the author of Necrology, Meg Ripley. On Sunday, October 6th, Fears with Ellen Datlow is coming on with Ellen Datlow and guest Laird Barron, Bracken McLeod, and Teresa DeLucci. And then on Saturday, October 12th, did I just do that by pushing a button accidentally? I apologize.
One of us did. I'm sorry. We're not really.
I don't have a mouse with me, and I'm using a touchpad. And anytime you touch it, something happens. And then on Saturday, October 12th, Jim and I will both be at Beacon Books to talk about Discontinue If Death Ensues and Where the Silent Ones Watch. And I would show the cover again, but apparently I just did. So I'll do that.
Okay. I'm just putting all those dates and things in the chat so people can check it out and go to the Stanza Books website for more information. It's a relatively new bookstore in New York that is super supportive of horror literature.
There's even a horror book club that I participate in with them, which is wonderful. So, I'm glad to see horror taking a nice upturn in popularity, and women in horror as well. So thank you, Sisters of Foreboding, for joining us. This has been so much fun to see you all together at the same time. Not the same time, but simultaneously. So.
Speaking of that, we do have one question I don't think that has been answered tonight. This is coming from Elaine Pascal, I think. Will the sisters collaborate on future projects?
Oh, well, Elaine already knows us because she is the godmother of horror, and she had us on her show. So she's already been talking with us a little bit. I think that is to be determined, Elaine. Yeah.
I'm up for it. Definitely. I'm up for it.
Sure. There we go. Maybe we talk about discontinue after death is ensued. That's it. Sorry, Carla. I apologize.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
No, but I mean, this is so fantastic. I'm so excited to read this anthology when it comes out. It's like, if to go back to the musical analogy, it used to be you'd have super groups where like all these top people from different bands would get together and make one like really amazing band, and this feels like the supergroup of horror literature.
Aw.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. Well, thank you everybody so much for tuning in, and thank you everyone for coming in from all around the world in different times, and thank you, Anna, for staying awake, and to everyone who got up early. So thanks so much. All right, and Jim, thank you also for joining us on this adventure, and we appreciate your participation with us as well.
So my pleasure. Thank you for letting me be part of it and hearing the readings and asking some questions, which was fun. I think there's a lot more we could talk about if we had more time. So we'll have to have everyone come back on Galactic Terrors during regular broadcasts, just so we can spend some more time chatting about your work and writing and everything.
Sounds like a great plan to me. Yeah. All right, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Carol.
Thank
James.
y'all.